This is a catalogue of the Universal Exhibition in Paris in 1900, and on page 111 there is this sculpture. And I'm going to make a little drawing of this sculpture. I have this paper. It's from this package. So I'm just going to make a little drawing after this sculpture from Paris. So where do I begin? I have this charcoal, Sonda Koh-i-Noor, and I will use this this one, Faber-Castell medium pastel white. But I'm just going to draw this figure. And there's a black background. So let's see if we can. I'm going to zoom in a little bit now. Oops. Let's see if we can make this convincing. So there are her arms, her legs. She has a sort of contrapost pose. And when I look at this, I wonder, it's a bit too much to the right, I think. Because there has to be some sort of balance. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. So let's see what I'm doing here. So this area is a bit too much to the right, I think. I'm constantly looking on those vertical lines. Is everything positioned at the right spot? And I don't really know much about anatomy, I must say, in all honesty. So I try to look carefully at what I have in front of me, and slowly her figure is starting to emerge. Let's zoom out. So let's look at this. This should be here somewhere. And now for the fun part, I have her figure now on the paper. And let me take a look. I think most of it is quite... It's on the right spot, I think. So now I can add more tonal values. It can be a bit of a struggle to get those proportions right. Because you want her arms at the right spots and so on. And now I want to have a dark background. And what I'm looking forward to is the moment that I can use white. But I'm not sure if maybe I am using too much black now, so I'm not totally sure. So I try to create an interesting composition by adding this black in the background. So that's one of the areas that I can, one of the elements that I can manipulate to create an interesting composition on the paper. And now the moment I was looking forward to. White, adding highlights, and I just go through everything. I mean, whether there is black or not on the paper, I just try to aggressively add white where I want it if necessary. It even makes a certain sound. And I'm especially looking at larger shapes, so not even irrespective if it's a leg or an arm or whatever. Maybe you can squint your eyes a bit, look through the hairs of your eyelashes and just add white where it's light, And let's see. Because on the one hand, when you make, a drawing, you can be very careful not to put black where you want to use white, and you can see now why that is, because it mixes with the white. And on the other hand, it's also an opportunity to get all kinds of interesting side effects, which you cannot always control, but it can be interesting as well to not be so cautious, so to speak. Now I feel I'm consciously even using these mixtures on the paper for some, can I say, halftones, where it's shadow and light, a bit, where it is in between. So at a certain moment you even learn to work with them. So that's interesting too. You can avoid very much to mix them, and you can also try to work with that mixture. And let's take this black again. There is this Hint of a shadow. I'm using my fingers as well. Something which I usually don't do, but hey, whatever works. Whatever is needed to make a drawing work. And accentuating some blacks here, some darks. And sometimes the question is, can I make this drawing work, so to speak? You know, do I have an interesting approach? And now I take white again. Add some accentuations here, and I'm just seeing how much I can leave on the paper, how much white, if I apply it quite forcefully. Does it stick? Here I'm deliberately mixing the black and the white. I mean, in general, I can say with a technique like this, I would like to have the paper do as much of the work, you know, the mid-tone of the paper. But now I'm just working with this pastel and charcoal. I need to adjust the form here. Her hair, sculpture. And I'm reaching a point that I think, well, it's a nice sketch. It's a bit crude, but I actually like it. Yeah. It's a quick sketch of a nude, and it was a bit of an experiment with this technique. Well, let's see if I can improve this a bit. Maybe I need to take a break and come back later and then do the last things about this drawing. I've taken a little rest and with a set of fresh eyes I can look at this drawing, and I'm just looking at what I can do to make it better. Now I am deliberately actually mixing the black charcoal with the pastel white. So what I would discourage to do in other contexts, you know, when you make a portrait or something, well, maybe I can try that too with this mixing, but at this moment I find it interesting to do that because it gives another kind of appearance than having the paper do the work in coloring in mid-tone, but it becomes so messy that you don't really see the paper anymore. So can I make this better in form? So I'm looking at her face. Can I make that a little more exact, like the source sculpture photograph? And here, the reflection on the underside of her breasts, also interesting, important. Not sure if it's really that visible in such a drawing, but I try. Oops, I wanted to use the white and I almost used the black one. Now I'm adding details. I'm working on several parts now. Every time I see something, I try to modify it a little bit. So here the shoulder. Oops, that's too light. Trying to use my fingers to mix that a little bit. There was a Rembrandt pupil who said about this technique or something similar, that you're not supposed to use your fingers and mix it, but if you need it, just do it, because you want to make a good drawing, and sometimes you just need to do something like using your fingers to smudge something, which you would prefer to do otherwise. When you think about it, I mean, in general I would prefer to have the paper do the midtones, you know, do the work of the midtone, but in reality, in a situation like this, it's all such a smudgy drawing that one has to mix the charcoal with the white pastel, you know, to make it a good drawing or a better drawing. So then you just do that. In that respect, I like Van Hoogstraten, his attitude, that he is not very principled in those. You know, you have a certain set of rules, but you break them if necessary. Set of principles sounds perhaps better to some instead of rules, but anyway. Let's see, I think here it needs some tonal value. And here too. Oh, I'm really making it a messy drawing. But it needed that little more darkness there. Here. And now I want to add little accentuations here and there. And see if I can make these shapes more correct. This arm needs some adjustment. I'm slowly going all over this figure to see if there's something that I can adjust to make it a bit more convincing. And I'm reaching the point slowly that I think, well, maybe it's not a perfect drawing, but I like it. It's sketchiness, and it has a certain charm, I think. And I see that I need to draw this shadow here, but slowly I'm approaching the point that I think, well, I just leave it as it is. But I'm not finished yet. Let's see. I often start saying things like, well, I'm going to finish this, and then I see all kinds of things. I just sharpened these points a little bit, so I have new ammunition. And now I'm carefully adding detail, and I just want to see how far I can bring this drawing towards a quite detailed drawing. Anyway, more accurate than it was. Relax. And as you use these materials and you use them more, then you start to learn how they can be combined. Certain things that you avoid in the beginning, try to avoid in the beginning, they can be interesting actually when you are forced to try them, like mixing them. Well, I actually find that interesting now in this drawing. So Here's an area of halftone. Sort of not really light area, but a nice transition from dark to light here that I totally forgot. I'm not saying totally, but it could use some work. So what started out as a drawing, as a quick sketch, turns out to be a drawing which I want to give some more attention to. So that can happen too. And I think I slowly go to finishing this drawing that I think it has detail enough by now, almost. So I think it turned out rather nice with some interesting things. I like what happens here, and anyway. Oh. And one last look. And I leave it at this. Thank you for watching. Thank you.